So welcome back to the CEO Lens. My name is Paul Miller, and we're covering off a very interesting topic this session. It's that time of the year. It's Christmas, and we're told it's a joyous time of the year. It's probably the one we've all been waiting for, to take a break from work, to head to the coast and have a wonderful summer time with our families. And yet for many people, this is a challenging time of the year. It's fraught with loneliness, sense of isolation, maybe even depression and anxiety. And so it's this time period of extreme contrast between the joy of Christmas and the summer break, but equally not feeling up for all the festivities and the challenges that comes with it. I'm very fortunate today that I have Cassey Chambers joining me today. Cassey heads up SADAG, which is an important call line that fields thousands of calls every day from people facing either suicidal tendencies, depression or anxiety, or just not coping with life. Cassey's going to give us a lot of insights and ideas, and hopefully give us some clear strategies to deal with the summer festivities and make sure that we prepare ourselves well and come out all the stronger at the end of it. Just a heads up, we will be talking about suicide. So for those of you who do need help, please do reach out to the SADAG call line, which is 0800 456 789. Before we get into Christmas and before we get into the December break and we talk about how to better prepare for it and why is it so challenging, maybe we should just lay a foundation on our mental health in South Africa. Now, as a nation,
going into the festive season, what does it look like?
Before we even start this thing, right? Before we even put sunscreen on, put the
pack the bags,
pack the bags. What's our baseline?
Yeah, and kind of like what you're going into, and I think that's what's so interesting is that we only think that it only comes up in December, but we're coming with all this baggage of the year, right? It's hard. We see that people have carried financial burden. So now towards the end of the year, they're in serious debt. It's also the time you see the most divorces. So relationships have crumbled. You're seeing people lose their jobs. Also in December, they've lost their homes. There's now debt. So there's all of this kind of like a tunnel impact of all of these other issues that people are bringing in. And when we look at the stats and the numbers, I mean, our call volumes don't dip before Christmas because people are excited. Their mental health is actually in a very vulnerable, bad state. You've also got this time of year where people's medical aid have run out. So they have probably not looked after their mental health as well as they should have, or perhaps have from the beginning of the year. So they've stopped taking medication. They've stopped seeing their psychologist. They're not really good at their self-care anymore. So they're actually at a highest peak for their mental health. And then you're going to add all these extra stresses. So they're going in really setting themselves up to fail. And what we also have in South Africa is that over the festive season, everything closes down. Psychologists go on leave, psychiatrists go on leave. I mean, there's already practices that have closed, or patients who made appointments 3 months ago who are still waiting to see someone next year. So then we've got that as well. So people think, well, I'll wait till next year. I'll get help next year. I don't have time now, until they're sitting at a hospital because they've got thoughts of suicide, right? And I think it's that misunderstanding, that misconception that depression will just go away with Christmas. You know, it'll just disappear.
It's a joyous time of the year.
It's a joyous time. I'll feel better when I rest and I'll sleep. But it's like saying that your diabetes will go away, you know, in a few weeks' time. And I think that's what people don't take seriously into the festive season. And I think it's also really highlighted for us the issue of loneliness, is that this time of the year, even more so than ever, as people feel so disconnected. I mean, we did an interesting survey now a couple of weeks ago, just looking at what is the snapshot of South Africans of how they're feeling about the festive season. And we had over 2,000 people who filled in the online survey, which is pretty big for surveys and on mental health. And half of the number of people were incredibly lonely, and they've had previous Christmases where they were very lonely. So that seems to be a theme that comes out. And Christmas, the movies, the adverts, you're around dinner tables, you've got food and family. And the uncle you don't always want to see, and the conflict was also a big worry for a lot of people over the festive season. And yet we're so busy and there's so many people and stuff going on, but yet we feel so lonely. So we're not connected to someone or that significant other.
So before you pack the bags and fly to your destination or drive or walk out the front door of the office, we're starting at a bit of a deficit, right?
Yeah.
You started the conversation when you walked in just now and said hello to me. You said, I'm rushing to end of the year. I'm not sure if I'm ready yet. I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get everything done. And I think there's truth in that. And I think the other concern is that we have such high levels of depression in the country. We talk about 1 in 3 probably are living with depression, anxiety levels of close on 1 in 5. And 50% of the South African population will probably face some mental health condition in their lives. So just before we even get going, right, that's a challenge. What are you seeing over the December period? What calls are you getting with the SADAG call line? What are the conversations? What are people raising?
So what's really interesting, and those stats are so alarming when you put it into perspective, because 1 in 3 is someone in every household. That's in every single home in South Africa, there's someone that's battling. So what we're seeing on the helplines, and I think, again, to put into perspective that 1 in 3 and the 50%, and we're getting 3,000 incoming calls per day. So that's 3.
So is that a significant step up over the December period, or does it stay pretty much the same?
It stays pretty much the same, but we also go into every December seeing what is going to be different, right? Because it's something that you can't predict. There's no formula around it. It's so based on human connection and where people are at that we kind of see every December, well, what is that kind of dipstick into what's happening in society? So we've anticipated currently our call volumes don't drop over the festive season. We stay pretty steady. And at the moment, we're seeing 3,000 people every day that had no one else to call or speak to besides a stranger on the other side of the phone. And I think when we think of that, that's a large number of people every day who are so overwhelmed and have no one else to say, I'm not okay, that they speak to a counselor at SADAG. And thank goodness that they're reaching out.
And they feel probably safe doing that as well, Cassey.
Exactly. And I think that there's some kind of safety in not having to see the person. They can be anonymous. They can just talk openly and get it off their chest, which is great. And we want to keep encouraging people to do that. What we see over the festive season, though, is we see a lot more loneliness. So people who, I mean, we're speaking about packing and holiday and families, but there's so many people who still have to work, who don't get the luxury of being able to afford to go away or go and see and visit family or travel back home. So we find loneliness is a really big trigger, a really big reason that people are calling in for help. We do also see a bit of a difference. We see the elderly calling in a bit more, feeling alone. Their children are busy. They've gone away. They're overseas. They have no one else that's checking in on them. Also loss and grief. It could be the first Christmas without a loved one. It could be the
empty chair at the table.
The empty chair at the table. And the older you get, the more empty chairs they become. And then it becomes difficult. And I think people often forget, you know, that person has passed away 5 years ago. It should be better. And actually it's harder for a lot of people. So we do get a lot more of those calls. So we spend a lot more time on a counseling call than, say, a couple of months ago, because people are really struggling. And we also know that there aren't as many resources available. So you can't just say, phone a psychologist, go to a clinic.
And we spoke about beginning, we said, you know, the December period in South Africa is a period of contrast. So if you are lonely, you are even lonelier over the festive season, because you've lost your routine, you've lost your work colleagues, now it's just you and you're at home. If you are anxious and you're anxious about having to face that uncle or open up that argument that you had with the family and face them again, that just gets heightened, right? Because now you know you're going to go into the situation, you're going to be in this space with a family. And I'm sure that anxiety just gets to a new level that it was never there before. You mentioned the financial considerations. It's been a tough year. Now you've got no money. Now you've got to spend money because this is what you do this time of the year, fully knowing that there's school fees to be paid just around the corner.
Exactly.
And I suppose these are all just heightened. And you taking these calls, and it's great that you're taking time and efforts, but what's the guidance? How do we navigate this? How do we go into this period more mindful, right? Because it doesn't just affect people living with depression and anxiety. It affects all of us.
Yeah.
We finish up the year, we're exhausted, we're tired, we just want to get on holiday, but then we've got all these conflicting expectations on us. We've got people wanting to see us, people wanting to participate with us.
Yeah.
Time just seems to dissipate. Money's not enough. So what's the coping mechanism? How do we get through all this?
And I think that's what I think is so great as well, is that often these kinds of conversations, when we talk about this, is normally in hindsight. You know, I should have done this better. I could have done that. And going into the festive season, to be more intentional about these kinds of conversations is so important.
Yeah.
And this is why I love, even though it feels heavy, it's such an important conversation that gets people thinking as to, well, what do I want the holidays to look like? What do I actually want to do? What is actually good for me? What do I need to do more of or less of? And being aware of some of those triggers. I think it's also giving permission to people to say no.
Yeah.
We have all this pressure
Set the boundaries.
Set the boundaries. We have the festive season where every advert and movie is telling you what it should look like, right? Bigger presents, do this. Social media doesn't help because we're checking where our friends are going on holiday, what they're eating, what they're doing. So the pressure just feels so overwhelming and just too much. But kind of going in with these practical things of not it's all doom and gloom and there's no hope and we'll see you in January, but actually saying there's so much that we can do to really make sure that we're looking after our mental health and prioritizing, whether you have depression or anxiety or any mental health issue, or perhaps even you're feeling burnt out and stressed and anxious. Maybe it was a really hard year for you. You can take anyone and everyone should be doing something to prioritize their mental health. And I think going into the festive season with that conversation is already a big game changer, because we often start lists of things we have to do to finish up at work, what things we have to do for presents and gifts, but actually saying, but what do I have to do for myself? And some of the practical tips and tools that we share with callers, and they start now, right? We've already had people starting to call SADAG a month, 2 months ago, prepping for December, because it is such a big funnel for so many South Africans. We also work the entire year to get to December as our holiday and our time off.
It's a big bet.
It's a big bet. And then we just busy ourselves with everything else we're supposed to do. So there's actually no time to recover. So what we often do is someone living with a mental health issue, a depression or anxiety, put up a schedule. What does that routine look like? And you even mentioned we're so used to throughout the year having a routine, having a purpose, a reason to get up, go out, see people. Now that changes and we often can feel lost. So starting with the routine, patients who are on treatment for depression or anxiety, making sure that they've got their script up until the end of January. Doctors often close, so you can't get a renewal. It's often those practical things that we don't always think about. Having a session with your therapist and finding out when are they going on leave, when is your last session, what kind of help is in place in case you struggle and you're feeling overwhelmed. So kind of having a mental health safety plan before the season hits is really important.
Cassey, the other thing as well is that I think there's an opportunity here as well to kind of normalize those feelings, because you mentioned that social media moment when you look online and you see how everyone's enjoying themselves and you're told it's a joyous occasion and you're told this is where families get together and everyone loves each other. And then sometimes you may not want to be there. You know, you may feel overwhelmed. You may not feel like this is what you want to do. And I think people are left with a lot of guilt because why they're not making more of the holiday, why they're not making more of the moment. But maybe also just saying it's actually okay to have these feelings and you haven't failed. You haven't missed the mark.
Nothing's wrong with you
Nothing's
for
wrong with
feeling
you.
like that. Yes.
Yeah, we have good days, we have bad days, and maybe it works for you one day, it doesn't work for you the other day, and that's okay. So don't beat yourself up or hold yourself to a standard, which is unrealistic over that period.
Exactly. And I think setting yourself up to fail already before you've even started, right? And we already our capacity to cope and adjust and be resilient at the moment is already quite low because we've had a difficult year, right? It's exhausting, it's a lot. So now setting ourselves up to fail just means that we might not cope as easily as we would have maybe earlier in the year, middle of the year. So it's
and
so
maybe
true.
all the people that helped us and supported us are no longer there.
Exactly. And
So
they're also feeling
they're on
this.
holiday. Yeah, exactly. So how do you, as you spoke about, proactively set those connections up, that it's a WhatsApp, it's a call with them, but you maintain that connection, that you don't allow that isolation to kick in?
And I think it's so easy when you're feeling low and overwhelmed to isolate yourself. It's one of the key symptoms of depression or anxiety, right? Is that the nature of that illness actually makes you want to be less sociable, less talking, less going out and putting yourself out there, and you feel physically tired. So the nature of the illness is that you're going to withdraw. But it's also why this conversation is so important, is we're speaking to the supporter and the loved one, the friend who maybe does have someone that they can think of and say, actually, yeah, they've had a really difficult year. I need to check in and say, hi, how are you doing? Or even now normalizing the conversation when we get together over that braai or Christmas lunch, we're like, sure, it's been a really difficult year.
Yeah.
And kind of just being a little bit more human and saying, yes, it's hard. And how are you really doing? Right. And I think normalizing that we can talk about it without it being doom and gloom or so serious that you need to speak to a psychologist. These are conversations we should be getting used to talking about. And this is that perfect time. So during that moment, whether it be over the festive season, starting that WhatsApp group, we're just checking in, connecting, sharing funny memes and pictures, and that makes you feel less alone.
Nudges.
Those little nudges, those little reminders in your pocket that you're not alone. It's also checking in, a phone call. There's been so much research that shows just by having a connected conversation can make such a huge difference into someone's day. So when you're thinking, well, what do I do to support someone? Pick up the phone, do a video call, say hi, check in how they're doing, and it can make the world of difference. And they sound really small and insignificant, right? A phone call, a WhatsApp message, but it's those little things that start to grow and develop and make a big difference to someone who is feeling like they don't have any connection to the world.
So it's routine.
Routine.
It's boundaries. It's staying connected, managing your expectations, maybe giving yourself a little more grace.
Yes.
Don't set the bar too high.
Exactly.
It's about planning up front with your support structures, making sure you got your script on charge.
Yes.
What else can we do?
So one thing that we often do during the festive season is we forget to actually look after our bodies, right? Because it's late nights, it's traveling, alcohol, it's eating excessively, it's going out till late, it's doing lots of events at once. All the good things that we tick off, but are actually energy suckers. And then we wonder why the next day we're feeling so depleted.
And our sleep is all over the place, right? We're not getting to bed early, we're all over the place.
We're not drinking enough water.
Inconsistent.
And it's those simple things to say, okay, starting the day, again, that routine and that mindset, how am I looking after my body? Because it's going to be the same body that's going to start me off in 2026. And what is that going to look like? We often find that we survive the festive season and hit that dip that when the new year comes, we're already starting on the back foot, right? And I think it's just the basics: drinking water, have I eaten today, and have I got enough sleep?
Sleep consistency. It's quite a big thing, isn't it?
It is, and I think especially this time of the year, we see that our sleep habits that we've created are really bad. Because we're just trying to get to the end of the year. We're just trying to survive and push and meet those deadlines. So the sleep habits we have are really not helping us. And we also know that that has an impact on our physical body. So often when we then have a holiday and everything stops, we get sick. Our bodies are saying, actually, you haven't looked after us this year. And now all of these ailments are going to come out. And it triggers chronic stress. Triggers chronic illness. And then you're dealing with a physical illness over the holidays, which is an added stress. So sleep is a really big issue for a lot of South Africans because we have very poor sleeping habits. So going into the festive season, and this is one thing that we do with our callers, is if you speak to anyone about their sleep, oh, it's so terrible. And I slept so little last night and the night before. But it's actually trying to track how bad and how to get better sleep for yourself. And the difference between, is it just stress and burnout that I can recover from and rest? Or is it something a bit more serious that I need to get help with? And sleep is often one of our biggest red flags. So whether you're sleeping all the time and you wake up from an all-day nap and you're feeling absolutely exhausted for at least 2 weeks, then that could be signs of clinical depression that needs more help. But if you're finding that after naps and better sleep, you're seeing that your energy levels are lifting up, then that's a sign that you're recovering.
Yeah.
But sleep is really big, yes.
I want to go to a tough conversation. We have a high suicide rate in this country. You run a line, SADAG line, which really helps identify and support people that are contemplating suicide. In South Africa every day, 230 people attempt suicide and 23 succeed. It's a very high statistic. I think the sad part about the December break, the summer break, is that the suicide rates go up significantly. And we've spoken a lot around the reasons, about the loneliness, the detachment, the lack of support. But I think many people listening today may know someone who they worry about. And they worry, like, is this person suicidal? What are the signs? What should they be looking out for? And probably once we know the signs, should they be approaching the person and having that confrontational conversation in a kind, supportive way? So how do we deal with this, knowing that the summer break is tough on people in terms of taking that last step?
And I think it's such an important conversation to have, because it also shows us how serious it is if we leave depression untreated. And if we see lots of different causes and triggers, that it can lead to thoughts of suicide. It can lead to actions of suicide. When someone starts to feel like they can't cope with all their problems, and this is why in the stats we see December being such a hard time for people, is they've really tried to cope throughout the whole year. They're dealing with so many different issues. They're tired. Their bodies are tired, that their resilience levels are really low. So it's almost like that last straw on the camel's back when they're thinking they can't go on anymore. They can't see a way out of their problems. And that's when they do it. Their resources and their capacity is really low. What we're hoping if we could do, and again, through a conversation like this, is so key, because if we just get to normalize talking about it, we're helping other families who are worried about someone, who know that it's been a very difficult year for a loved one. They've maybe battled with depression. They might even had a history of previous suicide attempts. So they're a little bit more vulnerable or high risk. It helps them to give them the language to start that conversation, because it can often be scary to say, I'm really worried about you. Do you have thoughts of ending your life? Do you have thoughts of killing yourself? And it doesn't feel natural for us to start that conversation.
Or you're putting an idea in their head.
And this is such a good myth to kind of debunk, is that talking about suicide doesn't plant the seed. And we often get this from parents saying, I don't want to talk to my child or my teenager about suicide. But the reality is that teenagers in South Africa are the most at-risk age group for suicide. And South African men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than women. So we have to have these conversations. So talking about suicide actually saves lives, because the other person will say, no, I'm depressed, or actually, yes, I have been feeling like that. And it's really scary and I don't know what to do.
It's now a problem shared.
It's now a problem shared, and you have instant insight into what's really going on and how serious the situation is. When someone says, yes, I'm actually, maybe they're posting on social media, I can't do this anymore, goodbye. And we tend to use social media as that platform, right? 10, 20 years ago, we saw more people writing goodbye notes or sending a private message, but now it's very public. And instead of giving a sad emoji face or giving them a quote to say, suck it up, you've got this, actually reaching out to that person and saying, I'm really worried about you. Are you okay? What's going on? Your message, something that you've said really bugged me. Are you thinking of hurting yourself? Have you ever thought about hurting yourself? And it opens up a conversation where that other person feels, maybe for the first time, someone sees them, someone gets it.
Yeah.
And I think at SADAG, running the only suicide crisis helpline in the country, we're dealing with crisis intervention, where someone is at that stage where they're attempting, they've taken pills, they've really desperate, and they're needing crisis help. And we're phoning hospitals, ambulance, loved ones to get them that care. In all that time, we've had to deal with a lot of families that kind of say after they've lost someone to suicide, I should have said something. I would have done this differently. And I think the idea of talking about these kinds of topics, which often seem hard, and
those brave conversations,
and something that we haven't normalized talking around the festive season, right? It's all about the tinsel and the presents and the lunch.
Chin up.
Exactly. Again, it's supposed to be a happy time.
Yeah.
But if we can actually start those conversations, we can prevent more suicides over the festive season.
So what are the kind of signs they should be looking out for? Things like, sleep disturbance?
Sleep is a big one. We also know talking or saying things like, I wish I wasn't here anymore, or everyone would be better off if I was dead, and posting on social media or a WhatsApp message or a quote. So they often, in over 80% of people who have died by suicide, there are some warning signs that you can look out for. So it's not too hidden. It's not always a surprise. You can see them. It's just about joining the dots. So talking about it, saying things like, I wish I wasn't here. Any signs of depression, so withdrawal, isolation, a massive change in eating or sleeping habits. And again, it's kind of checking in as what could be some of the triggers. What has happened this year for that person, or recently? Was there a loss, a retrenchment, a job loss? All of these can be contributing factors. We often find in more younger people, they also start to give away their prized possessions. I don't need my music collection or my favorite soccer boots, or you can have it. We often find that in adults, especially with men, they start to prepare all their financial things in order. This is where the folder is. This is if you need anything. They're checking in with their life insurance. And while that could be a good adulting admin to do, so you shouldn't be thinking every time someone does that, are you suicidal? But when you start joining the dots, it's the behavior, and it's starting that conversation. And we often find that we're not having enough of those serious conversations, and it doesn't go away by itself. And that's by just starting that conversation. I think to reassure a lot of family members is if you see any of these signs, don't wait until you tick all of them and say, okay, well, you've got all 10 symptoms. But it's when you see it that you're asking that question directly to say, I'm worried about you. And in the same sense that if your loved one had a heart problem, you're not going to do open heart surgery on them because you're not a surgeon. The same way is that you're not going to fix them if they're depressed or suicidal, but you're going to facilitate that they get to the right people. And even if you're worried,
not alone,
that they're not alone and that they too can get help. They don't have to have all the answers. They can phone SADAG and say, I'm really worried about my husband. This is what's happening. What should I do? And we can come up with an action plan for them.
Interesting you mentioned that, because for men, you've told me before, Cassey, that I think almost 70% of the callers are women.
Yes.
And even many of those women are calling on behalf of their partners, which are men.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. And I think we're seeing more of a shift, and we need to see more of it. And we even saw this in our recent survey. We had 85% of the women, or 85% of the participants who filled in the survey were women.
Yeah.
But the 15% of men that did fill it in were so happy to share. The minute that someone asks them the question, it opens up. So it definitely tells us starting the conversations makes a difference.
So we've been talking a lot about, as you get into December, there's so many things that start to come your way, right? You've got to prepare for the end of the year, getting the work done. You've got to prep up for the holidays. You've got to prep up for Christmas. Once you're over Christmas, then it's a hop and a skip and you're into New Year.
Yeah.
And then you've got to start thinking about, oh my word, we need to start preparing for the next year.
Yes.
But the one generation that is really showing up a lot on the call center is your 19-plus-year-olds. And many of those are going through some challenging times over that period, waiting for the exam results.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah. Do you want to just talk through how does that all show up? And
Yeah. So what we even see on the helplines, which is also very encouraging, is that the majority of our calls are from youth. So 19 to 35, which means that there's much better help-seeking behavior. They're reaching out, which is great. But over this festive season is also, they've got this, especially with the matrics, they've got this kind of cloud hanging over them as they wait for those results. They've had a really hectic couple of months, and now they're supposed to relax and not worry about the what if I get these results? What if I fail? What if I don't get in to university? What if I don't hear from them? And that also taints this whole experience until they get to that, which is in early January, where their fate of their next steps is kind of in the hands of those results. So I think there's often very heightened levels of anxiety or agitation and stress. And if you speak to any matric family, it's not just the matric learner, it's the parents as well who are feeling that, you know, in that household, and everyone's kind of waiting for that moment. So that is something that's also an additional stress that a lot of households are dealing with. And then you've also mentioned like going into this journey of what this very short space of time has, all these different big moments, these milestones. We've got Christmas and New Year, and then we start the new year and people are asking, what's your New Year's resolution and what are you doing? And I think it's a normal question that have in our social circles, but it puts a lot of pressure on people. We're supposed to be healthier, better, do this more, new careers, family. It's all those, again, the expectations and the pressures that we start off with. And we've kind of termed January as a January because there's so many different anxieties that we start the year with. So it could flow over from the previous year, depression, and then into January. So it is significant. And I think for a lot of young people, there's a lot of pressure on them where the whole country, all families are kind of looking at them. And it's a lot for any young person to deal with.
How do parents cope with this, right? Because no 19 or 18-year-old wants to be kept asking the question about how you're feeling, how you're coping, what can I do to help you? What's the best way for them to show up over this period?
And I think that's so true, is because even as a young person, we don't always have the language to pinpoint how we're feeling. It's a lot. We're excited, we're stressed, we're not quite sure. So even just connecting, saying, why don't we just go for a walk together? Let's go do something together. Come help me with dinner. It's finding those moments to connect about other things. When you're watching a show together, it's using that to let them know that you're there. So when they do feel comfortable to say, actually, I'm really worried, you can be there to have that conversation. I think it's also helpful to know that they're not alone in thinking, I'm going to set you up to fail, or what is mom going to say, or dad. So kind of setting that tone to say, whatever happens, I'm going to be here and I love you and we're going to figure it out. And that conversation can be so reassuring. Also to hear how mom and dad coped when they were in matric, right? And they were waiting for the results and what it was like for them makes him feel less alone, and as if the spotlight and the microscope is just on them. It is also helpful as a parent when you go have those big family lunches and settings, is to give the heads up to everyone else. Like, let's not all ask the questions. You know, once you've been asked that question 10, 20 times, it's normal for a young person to say, I'm out. So having that conversation is sometimes really, really helpful, but making sure that your line of communication and support, don't assume that they know that you love them and that they're okay and whatever happens, tell them. Tell them once, tell them 10 times. Because it's those learners who get their results. And unfortunately, we always hear this when the matric results come out, is someone who maybe felt like they disappointed someone. They didn't quite get what they were hoping for, or they failed, and they just can't cope with that disappointment. And then unfortunately, we do hear of suicides. So have that conversation, rather have it too much than too little.
You mentioned that myth around don't put an idea in someone's head. What other myths could you remove if you could?
I think the idea of talking to someone, planting the seed, is a big one. If someone is talking about suicide or has attempted suicide, or even talking about depression, that they're looking for attention. It's an attention-seeking behavior. And actually the big question that we then throw back is, how bad must it be for the other person that the only way that they're getting someone's attention is by threatening suicide or threatening to end their life? And what if that time they got it right and you would how do you then go back on that? So that's a myth that I think for a lot of people, we just see it as attention seeking, and that adds so much stigma. Again, as if you've asked to be depressed, as if you switched on a button when you're woken up in the morning to say, actually, yes, today I want to be depressed. No one asked to have anxiety. No one asked to have depression. So those would be some of the key myths that we would love to see. Another big one, especially for men, is that mental illness is a weakness, that you're less than. And actually from the people that we've spoken to that are struggling, and even people who have openly had conversation and shared their own lived experience, they're often the strongest people, and the most caring and the most compassionate and the smartest. It doesn't make you less of at any rate. But often having those conversations takes a very brave person.
Yeah. You spoke about heart surgeon. And it's interesting. We always tend to accept the fact that if you've got a heart condition, you need a heart surgeon.
Yes.
But if you have your brain has some challenges, then no. You don't need a psychiatrist, you don't need a psychologist. But yet it's an organ just like the other. And I suppose the day we start to treat a heart attack with the same sense of empathy as a panic attack or an anxiety attack, we know we've made progress. I want to ask you, where are you heading for your summer break? And what are you planning? Because you spoke a lot about preparation, right? So what are you doing? How's your family lining up this moment?
So I think this is also where it's so important that we practice what we preach, especially working in the mental health sector, right? We're so good at telling other people how to look after their mental health, is that we have to be really intentional and role model that behavior. So also being super intentional with going into the festive season with an idea or plan. What are we doing less of or more than? So actually as a family, we're taking a digital detox in a really big way, which can be quite daunting and overwhelming. We're so used to being connected to a screen and getting updates. So we've planned that and scheduled that in. I think this year we're not traveling, we're not going away. It's all about people coming together. I think more and more from the work that I get to do on a daily basis, that human connection is irreplaceable. And we're doing more of that over the festive season and spending more of that time. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And I can also be really proud is that we've said no to quite a few different things. And some days we've set the boundaries, also making sure that we're adding ourselves to that list. And we're going in with that intention. We might not always get it right, but we're at least trying. And that's a good start. Yeah.
Cassey, thank you so much. I think, you began by talking about that 1 in 3 people are living with depression, which meant that in our families, we've got many people to take care of and to be mindful for. And I think also you've encouraged us to think about how do we help people with their loneliness? How do we connect with them? How do we have those brave conversations if we feel someone's not coping? I think there's also something about being proactive. I like that. The idea that you actually don't just have to do what people tell you got to do, right? Or what the Hallmark card says or what the Instagram shows you, but you can determine what the holiday is going to look like, and you can set the standard that you want to achieve. So thank you for giving us those really good guidances and good directions. Just lastly, SADAG and SADAG line, tell us a little bit about that, the calls that people can use if they need to reach out over the summer break.
Absolutely. So we know that for a lot of people, just being able to know that you've got someone to connect with at any time of the day is so important. So we don't close over the festive season. We're open throughout Christmas Day, 24 hours a day. So at any point, you can phone us on a toll-free helpline, 0800 456 789, and get free telephone counseling. So they can chat to someone. There's no time limit. There's just support. It's another human on the other side of the phone, or the WhatsApp line, or an SMS, or the website. Just for anyone who is feeling overwhelmed or not even sure what to do, they can pick up the phone and speak to someone. We have an amazing team of volunteers and counselors who'll be working over the festive season. And even on Christmas Day, when we're all busy, it's often the most difficult day for people, and we'll be there. At any point that someone needs to talk, they can pick up the phone.
Cassey, it's been a wonderful chat.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you for helping us to set the tone for the festive season and normalizing. I cannot express the impact of normalizing these conversations and making it okay. is just, it's profound. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Amazing.